Hey folks, welcome to episode 4 of Every Day is a School Day. It's a special one for me today. It's someone that I've known through social media for years, and we were saying, but we didn't even know how we came across each other, and it's as if we're all family friends. And I thought it was time to have a proper conversation online. So welcome, Jacinta McDonell.
Thank you so much.
Jacinta is a social entrepreneur and an advocate of using business for good. In 2008, Jacinta and her brother Justin launched the highly successful US franchise Anytime Fitness on the shores of Australia, opening over 425 locations nationally and achieving an annual network revenue of over 330 million before exiting in 2017. Fast forward to today, Jacinta is now a national board member for the Hunger Project, as well as sitting on advisory boards for other businesses, and has recently started a new business called Brave Spaces with her business partner, Andrew, which supports others on their journeys of self-discovery, particularly going through times of change. Jacinta advocates for authenticity and self-awareness, drawing from her multifaceted life as a mother, a yoga enthusiast, and meditation teacher. So thanks for coming on, Jacinta. Would you rather call Jack or Jacinta?
Jack's good.
Jack's
Yeah.
good. Cool. That makes it
Yeah.
easy for me. Instead of getting tongue tied.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose the first question, I love going back to childhood, because for me, that's, as you know, where our lives are shaped and formed.
Mm-hmm.
When was it that you can remember back to that you sort of knew that you weren't going to go down the traditional route of getting a job, going to, study and blah, blah, blah. When was that time? Talk me through that.
I think very young, very, very young. So my dad never had a job. So he
Right.
always had businesses. And I just grew up in that entrepreneurial mindset. And I think for me, I hated school. I don't learn in that traditional environment. I did finish my year 12, which was that felt like that was an accomplishment, because I just was so like, I don't see the point. So I feel like from a young age, I was very aware that I wasn't going to have take the traditional path, but I didn't really know what that meant. I just knew that I just was not going to. I wanted to always do my own thing. Was freedom for me has always been really important, to be able to do what I want to do. And so I left school. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I thought maybe I'd do something creatively, which still makes sense to me that I was thinking that. And we were working in gyms. So my brother and I grew up in fitness centers. My parents had gyms in the 80s.
Right. Where did they have gyms?
They had gyms in Windsor, which is where I grew up. I grew out Western Sydney.
Right.
And sorry, not in Windsor. That's where we grew up. Mount Druitt.
Mm-hmm.
And so all around Sydney, like west. And so in the 80s, we would get picked up from school and driven to the gym to do our homework, which I thought was quite normal, which I've learnt later in life that that's not what other kids were doing. But I think it's the same as, people getting picked up and their parents have restaurants, or so it's just that kind of upbringing, right? Like it's just that's just what
you're used
did.
to. I was brought to a pub. My mum worked in a pub.
There you go. Yeah, so it's just normal for you to do that after school.
Yeah.
And so my first part-time job was in a gym. So was my brother's, and my mum was also working there.
And what kind of gyms were they?
So these
were old school.
These are old school, proper, big aerobics
metal
classes. Clanging. Yeah, and the equipment was that old clunky plate loaded, really, really old school. Like you could open a gym. We opened our first gym when I was 18, and we opened it for $25,000. Like that was kind of
right,
because there was no, $10,000 treadmills back then, right? It was still post. And I just remember Mum coming home one day and saying, "Well, why don't we open our own gym? We're all working in a gym." And I was like, "Sure." Like, I don't think it was a real conscious choice. Let's be very clear. I was not doing anything else. Made sense. And we did that. It was on my 18th birthday, pretty much, that we opened. And then I realized I had no idea about anything, clearly. And so we hired a sales and marketing consultant. And that changed my life, because I then was like, oh, wow, this is fascinating. And really got into that part of the business, which the fitness industry is, if you're not strong in sales and marketing, you will not survive in that industry.
Correct.
So I think we learnt that from a very young age, my brother and I.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had that for about 5 years.
What
And
year
then we
was
sold
this,
it.
Jacinta?
This was I was 18, so I can't do math anymore. I don't even know. I'm 50
Okay.
this year. So
I,
32 years ago.
I can't do math either.
I can't do math either. I'm like, I can't remember the years
So
anymore
no,
after
probably
COVID.
over 30 years ago.
Yeah, 32 years ago.
Cool.
And so we had that for a while, and then we ended up selling it, and then the journey of the fitness industry continued. So I've been in the fitness industry since I was 18.
Right. And then how did you come across Anytime? Like, it wasn't in Australia, obviously, so you were probably looking to America for
Yeah,
insight,
so
ideas.
so we were always looking to the US for insight. So we would always go across. There's a trade show every year, and there's a magazine every May that looks at franchise editions. So we'd sold that gym. My brother and I both worked for Fernwood, which gave us a really good franchise grounding.
Oh yeah, that
When I
women's
was
gym.
22, yeah. So we both worked for them, so we had some understanding around franchising. Then we went and opened our own 2 gyms, and that's when we found Anytime. So it was 2007 in May that we found the concept,
Mm-hmm.
and we flew straight over. I saw it and I just was like, we're booking flights, like we're going. This is absolutely what we need to do next. Weirdly, I thought we would bring Snap to Australia. So we met with the founder of Snap. They're in the same state. And we spent a whole day with him, and then we managed to get an hour with Anytime. And they were like, we're not ready to come to Australia. And Snap
Right.
was like, here's an agreement. And I was like, no, we really, like,
Mm.
I just knew, like, in my gut, it was like, we really needed to work with Anytime. And then it took us 12 months to
And
get the rights.
in America, was Snap like more popular than Anytime, or what were they at level wise over there?
So Anytime had 600, and I think Snap was like 250. So they definitely
Okay.
started after Anytime. But 600 seemed really big at the time. Obviously now with the numbers globally, it's not. But at the time we were like, that's such a big, and it was a big chain. 600 is a lot of clubs in the US. And then we were their first international expansion. So we managed to secure the rights in May 2008, and then we launched.
Wow. And was that a big deal, like monetary wise?
It really wasn't.
Right.
The dollar was really strong at the time, which was very lucky. It felt like it was a big decision because we came out publicly in Australia and said we were going to open 350 clubs.
Yeah.
And people were like, what are you doing? Like, the industry was just laughing at us. They just thought we were absolutely crazy. And it was just, we were like, that's what we're doing. Like, it felt totally normal to be just saying what we were saying. But now I look back, I go, I can see why people were like, because Fitness First was the biggest chain at the time, and they had 90. And so we were saying we're going to have 350, and they were just like, these guys are just crazy.
You're just having a laugh.
And they laughed at us for years, which is fine.
Yeah. And what
worked out well.
It definitely did. What do you think the biggest learning about that was for you at that time? Like, what did you learn most about that? I
think commercially, my brother and I are really opposite. So it felt very weirdly quite easy to do the deal. We got on really well with the founders of Anytime. They liked us. We had to get some investment, which that was challenging because everyone was like, this isn't going to work. There was hardly anyone that everyone told us not to do it. But I think what I learned the most when I reflect, and that's why I love getting older, because you can actually see things and connect the dots backwards. And what I think I learned the most was really trusting your intuition. So at that time, I was like, there was not a part of me that didn't think that this was absolutely what I should be doing and that it was going to work. There was not even a slight doubt.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I've carried to really, understand how that feels in my body, so that when things happen and I'm making a decision, I can tap into that to go, well, how do I actually feel about that? So I think that was one of the times in my life where I was like, I know viscerally that this is what I should be doing. Whether it was going to be successful or not, I didn't know that, but I just knew that this was my next thing. This was something I really wanted to do. Yeah.
Because the 24/7 gym, was that even heard of at that stage?
No. Jets had started, Brendan from the Queensland had started just before us, which he was my first, I'm super competitive. And so when we launched, I was like, okay, we have to have more than him, was like the first like move
Goal.
that we needed to make.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, let's do that. So I think they had about 15, but it was really unheard of. Like consumers were like, what I can come 24/7? I don't understand how this works. So it was very, very new in 2008.
And you mentioned you and your brother work really well together. So obviously you balance strengths and weaknesses. What would you say that your strengths are in comparison to
Mm.
his?
So I'm definitely more sales and marketing, and structuring deals is probably more like kind of that front end part is absolutely my strength. And he's more the process, compliance, accounting, more of the traditional um, business operator. So it worked really, really well.
Operations. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, so that was 2002,
8 we
2003, or sorry,
launched.
2008.
2008. Yep.
So that then would it have been a roller coaster of a journey until you exited in 2017?
It was, and it was more of a, everything just moved so fast. Like the growth was just so astronomically fast. It was just constantly trying to make sure that we had the right number of people in the right seats. So it was just
Infrastructure.
really it was just really a people. It's like we always felt like we were hiring and then we were going to be overstaffed, and we would hire and then we were still understaffed. So it
Right.
was just, that was really the journey for the first, 8 years. I felt like that was just, we just felt like we were just like keeping up with what we
Yeah.
needed to do.
Treading water.
Yeah, and then by the time I left, we were really well structured. We had, I was very much on the board probably the last 5 years. I had small kids by that stage when I exited. So it was really well structured into, the organization that it is now when I exited in 2017.
Looking back, what strengths did your dad, like a mum, have? Like, what did you take from them? Because, like the way I see it, we all adapt our strengths and weaknesses from our parents and make them
Yeah.
our own. So, what do you think it was back then that gave you that drive and ambition to do what you've done from
I
those two?
think our dad, actually both of our parents really instilled, my brother and I have very strong work ethic. Like
Yeah,
we work hard. We always, it's just who we just saw it. We always saw
yeah,
my
it's
dad
handed
working
down.
really hard. It was just handed down. So, and we didn't come from money. So it was very much like it's on you, because nothing's going to be handed to you. So I think we learned that, you've really got to earn,
Yeah,
you got to earn your stripes, and you've got to, get in and do the things. And, we were, when we opened the first few clubs, it was like we were doing, like I remember
doing
putting the
everything.
cubbies together, right? It was like you building
Right.
furniture. So it was, that's where we came from. And so that was and I think franchisees saw that, and I think they trusted us because
Yeah,
they were like, actually, they do understand what it's like. And it's like, we know what it is like to do
yeah,
what you're doing because we've done it.
yeah.
So I think that built a lot of trust in our network, and I think that gave us a really good grounding culturally.
Definitely, as Gary V calls it, doing the dirt, doing the
Yeah,
dirt.
well, we definitely did the dirt.
And then your philanthropy side of things, did that come into
Mm,
play during Anytime
yeah.
Fitness journey, or was this after?
No, so I saw a man speak in 2009. We'd just launched Anytime, and my brother and I went to a growth faculty event, and I remember George Clooney was at the event talking. I don't remember what he spoke about.
So that's why you were
And
going.
then, no, I was going to hear him talk. And then, no, it may be a little bit. And then this other gentleman walked on, and I remember the whole 45 minutes. I remember where I was
Right.
sitting when he was speaking. When you just meet, there's moments in your life that you're like, this is really important for me. Whatever I'm hearing now is like, is it something that's going to be very important? And he was a social entrepreneur, and his name's Muhammad Yunus, and he
Right.
started a microcredit bank in Bangladesh. And so he just told his story, and it was like a doorway opened in my mind, and I'd never really heard of social entrepreneurship. This is 2008,
Yeah.
and we were, 2009, sorry, and we were deep in the like launch of Anytime. And I just remember thinking, what an amazing way to use the skills that you have as a business owner to solve social issues. And that was what was going through my mind. So that was 2009. I heard him. And then I had my daughter in 2010, and then I had my son in 2013. And then in 2014, I was at another event and they were talking about the Hunger Project and they were going to Malawi. And I was just like, I'm going. That's it. Like, I just knew that that was the next thing for me. Sol was really little. He was not even 1 when I went. And actually, he just turned 1. And that's when I got engaged with the Hunger Project. So it was 2014 that I saw the work. And I've been involved since as an advocate, and I've been on the board now for maybe 2 years.
Right.
But
Tell me,
that experience changed my life.
yeah, tell me more about that trip. How long was it for? So it was to Malawi, and what did you get involved with?
Yeah, so I'm actually taking people again on it. They're called our immersion trips. So we go in country, but what we really witness is the power of mindset. So we get to actually sit with our partners, we call them partners, our community partners, and see how they've achieved what they've achieved using the programs that we do. So the Hunger Project is really about sustainably ending world hunger, but the people that are to do that are the people in country. So we don't hand out food. We basically are like,
teach a man to
you,
fish kind of thing.
yeah, have everything within you as a human that you need. We will just give you these things. But the first thing that you need to believe is that it's possible.
Yeah.
And so we sometimes will spend up to 2 years doing vision, commitment, and action workshops with elders and communities so that they shift their mindset from it's not possible, we've always been in hunger and poverty, nothing's going to change, to we can do it. And then we start to implement the program. So it's a really unique way of working.
Yeah.
So when we go in country, we witness those workshops. We get to see leadership like really at the front line. So I like to describe it as it's a classroom like no other in the world. Like, we are learning from our partners. And we're witnessing transformation, we're witnessing human potential. And that's why I'm still so passionate about the work that we do, because I see how we transform
See the
communities.
difference.
Yeah.
It must be such a spin out for these communities, for these like elders. I can imagine for people coming in, and it's such a contrast of mindset. Like it's probably unheard of. You know, they don't grow up with. They're locked into this paradigm that's totally different.
And they'll say,
how
like,
responsive
it's always
are they?
Initially they're not, because they're
Right,
like,
yeah, I would
well,
imagine so. Yeah,
it's kind of like, where's the food drop? And then we have to explain to them
right.
why we don't do food drops. And
they get it.
and then they're like, okay. And then we were like, well, if food drops were the solution, then we wouldn't be in the same situation. And we start to unpack that with them. But it's a huge shift. Like, you know, from us, you know, we look at scarcity and abundance in our society. We have it. We don't think we have enough.
Of course.
We don't think we live with scarcity. So what we get to see when we go in country is how what's playing out here physically, we can see what's playing out here is also playing out within ourselves.
Yeah.
And where are
totally.
we fearful, and where are we feeling like I can't do something when actually we have all the tools in the world to do it?
Yeah, it's a good reflection of us, and then where we project and stuff too as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
You learn as much probably there than they do.
More, absolutely. Yeah.
Right, interesting. And how often then did you go to Malawi? Did you go every year?
We went again in 2017. We took a trip, then COVID stopped our immersion. So we're really only restarting them now. So we're going in October at the end of the year. We're going to Zambia. So we work differently in every country. So Africa, we have a different strategy to Bangladesh and India. So the Zambia trip will be similar to the Malawi trips that I've been on, just in different country, different languages. We have interpreters, so we can still communicate and learn everything that we want to on ground.
And is it safe? What's the legalities from their governments and stuff? Are they pro or are they against it?
We're very much across. So we work with the government. So the way that we work in our communities is we engage local government, so that our role, as we see it, is really to assist the community to get to a point within 7 to 10 years where they don't need us. They're self-reliant. They've got all the relationships with the governments that they need. We end up with rural banks. So there's a whole structure around. We have 9 programs that we implement that we know we need to do, all 9 of them, for a community to be self-reliant. So they're very supportive of us coming in. We only ever go to countries where we feel it's safe. There are countries that we work where we sometimes will be like, we're not doing an immersion. We're not traveling to India at the moment. The government, you know, that's just not where we've landed yet. So we're very aware of the global policies around travel and security and safety.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere last week that obesity is it's more so than hunger as an issue in the world. Imagine. It just shows how inverted the world is.
Yeah. Yeah. It really does.
Crazy. So that was the Hunger Project. What did that lead
Mm.
into next for you? So
So that's been a real stable for me. Like I exited in 2017, but the Hunger Project has kind of, regardless of what else has gone in my life, it's always been something that I just know
you're
that
passionate
I'm
about.
not. That's not changing. And then getting out of any time, I speak to other exited founders, and this led me to the work that we're doing now with Brave Spaces. Is um, It's really hard to exit a business because everyone's like, "Oh, fantastic! Like, you've ticked all the boxes, and now everything you should just feel like amazing and fulfilled." And there's a grief in exiting something that was kind of like your whole identity
Your
for a
baby.
period of time. It's your baby, and you're now out there going, "Well, now what do I do?" And so that was really hard few years, and then COVID hit, which was really helpful. And um, so I think that's really what drew me. I've done lots of personal development, self-development work. I started doing yoga and meditation back in, how old was I? 2000, it was about 2009 as well. So I've been on, I'm fascinated by the human condition
Me too. Yeah.
and how we can learn and grow, and then what are the things that we need to unpack from childhood? What are the things, I'm just hugely fascinated by how we can transform our inner world. And so I really lent on that when I exited Anytime. I struggled for a few years, then COVID happened, and then I met my business partner about 3 years ago and started to really look at the frameworks that he was using to be able to help people find connection and purpose. And I hadn't come across anything that was as uniquely powerful and simple to actually understand what is it that's going on, how can I regulate that, and how can I move forward, and how can I find connection and purpose with more ease. Because I think that if you Google, oh my God, you can go down rabbit holes. I have, I'm sure you have, Pete.
Oh yeah.
Like there's rabbit holes of like, oh, if I just do this or if I just do that. And I'd learned so many different modalities that it was like you just get lost, right? And then you're
Bamboozled.
like,
Yeah.
bamboozled with, I don't even know what I do now. And I think what Andrew has been working with for 12 years is with teams and with individuals is creating a pathway for people to actually find more connection and purpose and actually embed that and actually embody it.
Yeah.
And so we got to know each other really, really well the last few years. And it was last year that I was like, we need more people to have access to these frameworks and this pathway. And so that's when we launched Brave Spaces, which I'm hugely passionate about. I feel like it's kind of all the things that I've
Yeah.
done coming into this is actually what I need to be doing now. So I'm
Yeah.
very excited.
I've been
Yeah.
following and possibly going to go on one of the trips, maybe not
Yeah,
this year
amazing.
because just in the midst of selling and buying houses, but next year.
Yeah.
Definitely, because that'll
Yeah.
be a great opportunity to disconnect. But we'll talk about that in a bit. Yeah, so like you touched on the word purpose. Like I was
Mm.
hung up on that purpose thing for years because I was an
Mhm.
electrician. I get kicked out of school, became an electrician, and then started this or worked for the government, coaching, mentoring tradie apprentices, and then started my digital marketing agency, and then doing
Mm.
coaching and different stuff. But I always thought that purpose was this one thing that we were going to be do for the rest of our lives. And I was really caught on that. And it was like, you try and explore different things like, okay, that's not it. Try this. That's not it. Try this. That's not it. And
Mm.
it's really like it wore me down some shocking.
Yeah.
Like I was
Yeah.
depressed, just about
Yeah.
it. But I sense like my definition now of purpose is to become the best version of yourself. And then
Yeah.
underneath that is your mission of what you're doing now, because that'll
Yeah.
change and that'll change and that'll change. And that just feels so much better for me.
Yeah.
So what would your definition of purpose be?
I think exactly that. I think we do get caught on, I think purpose does change every 7 to 10 years. Like I
Yeah,
actually think that what we
definitely.
define now is absolutely, we grow and evolve. So why would that not grow and evolve with us? And I think I totally agree with you. I think for me, it is what is my unique gift. That's my job in my mind is to find out what is my unique gift and to express that into the world, which then leads to absolutely being purpose driven. But it also enables it to change because your unique gift, I don't think changes. the way that we
The
express it, I think,
essence.
changes. The essence
Yeah.
doesn't change. How we express it into the world changes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I
Different
think once we
vehicles.
start to understand that more so, like what is, and that's what we try and help people do, is actually go, well, at your core, what are you really good at and how do you want to express that? Because that really is your purpose at this point in time.
Yeah.
So I think, but it's very easy to get like really, really bogged down in the minutiae of it and just feel like, what's the point?
Yeah. Because that's what, whenever I was
I
an
can't figure
electrician,
it out. I can't figure it out. I don't know.
whenever I
Yeah,
was an electrician, I was under the illusion that I was either going to have to be an employee electrician or work to myself electrician for the rest of my life. And lots of guys
that
that
was
I
it.
work with were under that illusion too.
Yeah. And I
It's just,
think,
you get locked
and
into it.
that's, yeah, and I think that's when we struggle, right? When we give away our agency,
Hmm.
when we think that there isn't an option, when we don't have a choice. And I think a lot of the inner work that we do around becoming self-aware and finding the ability to have our mind observe self and start to actually see the dialogue that's going on in our subconscious is not true. But we
Yeah.
get locked into it as truth, and then there's no choice because the world is just the way it is and there's nothing I can do. Whereas when we start to actually hear what's going on in our inner world and be like, hey, I don't actually think that that's right, and start to observe it and get some distance from it, we can then realize we have a choice all the time how we
Yeah.
show up, and how we show up in the world is a choice. Yes, other people are going to do things are going to happen in the world, but how we respond is actually up to us. And I think that's a really big shift that helps people feel more human. And it's like, oh, okay, everybody else has these things going on inside of them too, right? We all
Yeah.
have that. We
Everyone.
all have the inner critic that's super not helpful, that's telling us all the time what, you're not good enough. So once we start to unpack that and realize that this is just part of the human condition, we have choice to go, okay, let's try and do something differently then.
Yeah. I'm finding out that it's actually not even their voice. It's usually one of their parents.
Yep.
Because you ask them,
It's conditioned. It is not us. We did not go, you know what I'm going to do to myself? It's our conditioning, and it's starting
yeah,
to realize, okay, well, I can see that now versus take it on as truth.
yeah. I like, someone said to me, so who's that voice in your head? Well, it's my voice, obviously. And then they said, well, who's the person that's listening to that voice?
Listening.
And it's
And
like,
then you
oh,
go,
okay.
oh, yeah, that's you. Yeah, the
That's you.
observer is actually us. It's not the noise. The voice is not us
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
It's just our crazy monkey mind.
Monkey mind is right. There's a few monkeys kicking about. So you talked about you're doing your own personal development journey. Who would have been your sort of mentors, dead or alive, that you would have interacted with, whether face to face or via books or seminars?
So I did. God, there's so many. I did a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza work early days.
Yeah.
Michael Singer, his books have
Mhm.
probably been one of the most impactful in my life. The Surrender Experiment literally
Brilliant.
changed my life. I went and met him. He's in
Oh, did you?
Gainesville still, so he still does his talks. So that was pretty freaky.
Yeah.
It was a bit weird. I've been listening to him for so long, and then I was like,
Yeah.
oh, he's actually there speaking right in front of me in this tiny little temple. So I'm a huge advocate for his work. I think that whilst he's very blunt,
Yeah.
he's spot on. I think, his journey, that book was just, have you read The Surrender
I
Experiment, Lee?
have, yes.
Yeah.
Years ago.
And
I'm just trying to
amazing.
see if I can see it on my bookshelf here.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
But yeah,
just I
like letting
think
go and
being
letting
able
God.
to,
Just
and just being able to understand what he created in his life with $1 billion computer company, whilst alongside having this spiritual journey of surrender, was just, it blew my
such a
mind, because it was like,
contrast.
wow, he was creating what we would perceive as success in the world whilst really just surrendering to what his unique gift was.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge advocate for his work. Lots of others. So Lynn Twist has written some amazing books around The Soul of Money is one of my favorite books. She was involved in the Hunger Project, but her book on that is incredible.
I've never heard of her. What's her? How do you spell her
Yeah.
surname?
Twist. So it's Twist, like Twist, Lynn Twist.
Right.
And the
Okay.
book
I'll check her
is
out.
The Soul of Money. Yeah, it's
Cool.
incredible. Yeah.
Right. I've never heard of it. And
Yeah.
was that one of the money books that would have helped you?
No, so I think probably the opposite. So her take on money is
I'm
around
not getting it
scarcity and
now.
abundance. No, you'll love it. It's amazing. But it's more, it's a really different way to read about how we perceive money and how we find abundance and how we can see scarcity within ourselves. I've always had a very healthy view of money. I've always just known that I'd be fine, even though I have no
and that
real
was handed
reference
down
point. I've
from your
really had no
parents.
reference point that I would be, but
Yeah,
but I was just like, I'll just figure it out. It's just so
brilliant.
I feel blessed to have had that. So I've always been willing to take risks.
Yeah, I think you need to
I think
you have to make
entrepreneurs,
money.
you have to. Entrepreneurs, absolutely. If you're not going to take a risk, then you
Yeah,
might as well not start.
yeah. You talked about the grief of
Mm,
founders leaving, like exiting their
mm.
business. Can you talk about the grief of starting a business and the grief of doing business?
Yeah. I
Because that's what
think,
I'm experiencing.
yeah. Well, it's the
It's
pain
tough.
points, right? It's tough. It's hard. Like you're by yourself. It's very lonely. It's
Very
one of the
lonely.
other
Yeah.
reasons. It's one of the other reasons Andrew and I talk about how grateful we are to be doing this together, and neither of us would have done it without the other person. So I think I feel very, very grateful to be in that business relationship because I work better with partners. I work better
Of
in
course.
partnership. But even then, it's still lonely, right? Like as we grew and as we evolved, I think the thing that people don't talk about with a growing business like that is, your circles of friends or, things shift and things move and there's grief in that as well. Like as we grow and evolve, even
Mm,
within ourselves, relationships move and some fall away. And I think that we need to understand that that's part of
part of
nature.
the process. Yeah. We're
It's part of
shedding
the
our
process
leaves.
of we're
Yeah.
shedding, right? And I think with business, it's the same thing. Is like we need to understand that we need to keep evolving, we need to keep growing. Otherwise, our business will stagnate as well. Like we personally need to grow and evolve our leadership because otherwise, nothing really. So I've
Yeah.
always been open to learning and open to being curious, and I think that's the only way to survive business is to be really open minded to be able to say, I don't know how to do that, but I'm going to learn, or I don't know how
Yeah.
to do that. I need to find somebody. And
Yeah.
so I think, humility is a huge business skill, I think.
Hmm.
Definitely for living a fulfilled life, I find. I've come across people that have done very, very well financially, but are just miserable.
Yeah. That's it. People think that
And
money is the be all and end all. It's actually not. It's like until you make money, you'll not understand that as well. Like
yeah, it
it's
really isn't. And people would think that it's going to solve, and it usually just makes the issues that they have even larger. That's what
amplifies things.
yeah.
Yeah. So when did you meet Andrew from Brave Spaces? What's his surname?
It was probably Leach,
Leach, Andrew Leach.
LEI. Yeah, Andrew Leach. It would maybe even be over 3 years ago now. And I was referred to him through a friend. I was working through something, and they were like, you should just talk to this guy. And I was like, okay. And then as soon as I spoke to him, I was just like, oh, wow, it's like everything that I've been learning came
Consolidated.
together. And I was
Right.
just like, okay, we need to stay connected.
And what was he doing then?
He's doing similar to what we're doing with Brave Spaces, but more with organizations. So he's been doing
Okay.
an element of what we're doing for 12 years now. He's been taking people out to the desert. He's got a lot of Indigenous wisdom around. Spent a lot of time with elders. So we have that kind of similarity in terms of I've spent more time in Africa in cultures, and then so he's been doing that, and then we came together to really start to look at how do we amplify the work, how do we make it more accessible because it can't just be Andrew. So we're training facilitators to be able to facilitate the framework. So we're starting our training with them next week. So it's really my role really is to help amplify what he has been building on and what he's been doing so incredibly well,
Yeah.
and continuing to grow and scale that.
And is it all overseas work, or are you still doing trainings for groups and companies here?
Yeah, so we're still doing most of it's here. We've got someone we're training in New Zealand, but yeah, in Australia. So mainly, so businesses, personal. So the trips that you probably have seen to Central Australia are more for individuals.
Yeah.
But we're about to launch more of our business organizational training around resilience and communication. And then also we're working on a youth program.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, my sister does similar kind of work in Northern Ireland. Like she's a coach, and does training programs for principals of schools and stuff. Like
Yeah. Wow.
Very interesting, especially
Yeah.
in Northern Ireland. Different dynamic,
Yes.
different mindset and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Totally.
so yeah, tell me more about the trip to Central Australia, because with the Aboriginal tribes, like that looks unreal.
Yeah. So our May trip is full, which is exciting, and we've just launched one end of July, beginning of August. So we go out for 5 days and we spend time with. We work through our frameworks. It's just a different. Again, it's a classroom that Have you been to Central Australia, Pete?
No, I haven't. It's on the cards. Like a good friend,
Yeah.
he just went last week to Uluru. Like me and my wife I've been wanting to go for ages, but whenever I read the description of a trip, I was like, that's how I'd love to do it. Not just your
Yeah.
touristy thing. I would like to get amongst the culture.
Yeah. So I'd never really experienced it until we went out last year just to have a look at what we were going to do. And there's something you can't explain the energy that being out there and in country actually feels like. So I think everybody should experience that. And then we spend a number of the days with an Indigenous healer called Marley. And
Right.
so we make medicine with her. She explains just it's just unbelievable to be able to truly be immersed on country with someone that's taking us to her country and hearing about how they perceive life and how they live and and their beliefs. It's such an incredible experience, and we layer on top of that the frameworks that we're working through as well. So it's a really transformative experience for people, and
Yeah.
it's really something that you keep with you. I think you come back and you're like, there's really some things that you've learned in a way that I'm very big on transformative experiences, taking ourselves out of our day to day to really
Massive.
truly be able to learn something, because I
Mm.
think it goes into our body viscerally differently, goes into our system differently than if we read it or if we're in our normal environment. Hence why, the trips to Zambia and the trips to Central Australia are really important to Andrew and I, because I think that's where we can radically shift a belief system.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's what those trips are really designed to is to bring us back to who we truly are, allow us
Yep.
to reconnect to the wisdom that we actually all have in our body. And I think that's what comes out a lot with the work that we do with Marley around their belief around, like, for them, it's totally known that you have a unique gift. Like, it's just,
Just a given.
you're born with it's just a given, and that's just what you should do with your life then. Whereas we are taught the opposite, which is, well, you
You
can't
have to
do that.
find it.
You have
Yeah.
to you have to go and the only way is to study this and then to do that and to tick all of these boxes, and
Yeah.
everyone needs to be the same and conform, and I think we have to unlearn
Yeah,
that
that's
to
it.
actually so we're unlearning
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff that was just, we're like a little computer. It's just been imprinted in us, and we're like, okay, this is my operating system. And it's like, well, actually, that's not the most efficient operating system
Nah. And
that
this
we
is
have, and
usually
it's
our operating
learning,
system as well.
right? And so it's remembering who we are and who we truly are at our essence. That's the work, and I think that's where the transformation happens.
Yeah. I like what Peter Crone, he's massive on that. He's like, there's nothing
Mm,
actually wrong with you. You just need to unlearn all the shit that you've learned to
yeah.
try and help the thing that is actually wrong with you.
Yeah. And I think that's something that Andrew's a trained psychotherapist, and he
Right.
only went into practice for about 2 years, and he had to leave. He said, I couldn't stand it because everyone's walking in wanting to know what's wrong with them. And he
Yeah.
said, there's nothing wrong with you. We've just learnt things that aren't true and we've taken them on as truth. So he left psychotherapy in its traditional form and went and studied lots of energy healing and lots of stuff with Indigenous elders. And that's how he came up with the frameworks that Brave Spaces now works from, is
Yeah.
because of his exactly that, which is, we are not broken.
Yeah.
We just don't understand how to use the innate wisdom and our actual system properly. And we don't sit down and be quiet enough to be able to still our mind, and then we just get totally disconnected from our heart and our gut and all the intuition that sits in our body. Is we just rely on this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not super reliable, as you and I know, as
Definitely
a
not.
great way to live.
And it's fed by phone, TV, like
Yeah.
music. It hasn't got the greatest of mentors at times.
No, it really doesn't. And it just has history to reference.
Yeah.
So your mind is
There's
only like,
no
well, what do I know in
imagination,
the past? There's no
creativity.
imagining something different.
Yeah.
There's no creativity. So we need to learn to unlock that, because that's actually usually what the pull to do something is from. But our mind tells us, no, that's stupid, or don't do that, or
Yeah.
and then we stay stuck.
Yeah. I'm similar to you. Over the years, I have done everything, spoken to everyone, tried everything, studied every modality. But what I have learned, like it's an element of the physical, the biological, and the mental. I'm finding like out now at my stage in the game. I'm just because
Yeah.
um your blood, your gut health, like that's the biological side. That's really important. The brain, the physical, or sorry, the mental side, the talk therapy. It's important too for
Yeah, absolutely.
sharing issues, and then the physical. The physical. I'm sort of diving into the whole nervous systems, functional
Yeah.
neurology stuff at the minute.
Yeah.
Um,
Fascinating.
it's fascinating because for
Fascinating.
years, I
Mhm.
thought that breathing from here was
Mm.
what everyone done, or what's normal.
Yeah.
And I mean, to the extent that my whole body is tense,
Mhm.
tense, like
Yeah.
rigid. And I
Yeah.
just didn't know that that was anything. And now that I'm exploring it, it's like, wow, if I actually breathe down into my diaphragm, slow breaths, like taking 6 breaths a minute rather than 60, like
Mhm.
there's things happening. But there's
Yeah.
definitely that book, Your Body Remember, or Your Body Keeps Count, I think it's called. It talks about trauma from childhood and how it's
Yeah.
stored in the body
It's
and
stored.
muscles and
Totally.
stuff. So it's something I'm exploring in a minute. I'll definitely get other people on the podcast to talk more about it, that know more about it than me. But have you had much experience in those modalities?
Yeah. So I started yoga as where because I was trying to fall pregnant. And the doctor was like, and we just start at any time. And he's like, I think you're stressed. And I was like, no, I'm fine. Totally thought, how I operated was normal. And then soon learned that, oh, actually I am, I am quite stressed. And so I started yoga in 2009, started meditating in about 2010, and then have dived much more deeply into that the last few years around, and a lot of that around, learning more about the nervous system and how does it work. And the first thing that Andrew and I, in all of our work, is we start with presence, which is becoming self-aware of what's going on in my system, which is exactly what you just said, which is if I learn to just breathe in a certain way, we change all of the biology
Yeah.
in our body, but things start to shift and to totally change. So it's as simple as being present
Yeah.
to what's going on. And once we can start to harness that tool, that totally changes our nervous system. It changes the way that we can think. It changes the way that we perceive the world.
Yeah. Or digestion,
Which
everything.
everything. And so we do a lot of work around the nervous system and the brain function, the brain body function, just so that we can understand it, because our brain also needs information to go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Now I can kind of stop talking as much and just start to believe that what's going on in my body is true as well. So we lots of brain mind function when we
Brilliant.
work at those spaces. Yeah.
Cool. I remember thinking I was present, but I wasn't. Obviously, it's like I was so disconnected from my body that I wasn't
Hmm.
even aware of how I was breathing. It was like, yeah, I'm meditating here. I've done my transcendental meditation course. Like I'm meditating 20
Yeah.
minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night. I thought,
Yeah.
yep, this is great. I was relaxed. I wasn't relaxed. Like
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
only recently that this is coming to light. That
Yeah. Have
this
you come
is
across the window of tolerance model?
no.
No, okay. So yeah, so it's just an amazing, it was a tool I worked with my meditation teacher, and we were just working on it's very integrated. The meditation that I do now is less transcendental. I did Vedic as well.
Okay.
That's where I first started learning meditation. So the practice that I have now is much more integrated with starting to understand different models. So the window of tolerance model is basically looking at when we are hyper aroused and when we're hypo aroused. And every one of us is uniquely different, right? So every one of us sits slightly differently in that window of tolerance. I'm much more on the hyper, like I'm, you can tell my hands never stop moving. And then there's people that are more they're just much more chill, and they're more relaxed, and they're more comfortable in the hypo. And so it's what is taking us out of our window of tolerance, and how can we regulate that better? And that's just an amazing model that I found, because it's all about our nervous system.
Yeah.
And what are the things that are taking us up and in and out of it, and how can we stay more in flow? Like if you study flow, that's literally the window of tolerance. Is like, how do we stay in that state where we're doing our best work, everything feels, there's ease, flow, there's enthusiasm. It's like, how do we stay in that more, and seeing what's taking us out? So it's fascinating.
Yeah, definitely some stuff to do around that. Yeah, because like I bit my nails. Like that's, I would say, my only advice. These days, bite my nails since I was a kid. Like my mum said, I had my fingers in my mouth since I was a baby. And it's just one thing that I know now that's linked to my nervous system.
Yeah,
And I'm looking
be.
forward to.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, but definitely people, I think, rather than just thinking it just as one dimensional way of, going to speak to a counselor, you need to take into account like the biological, your blood, your gut health, your brain health, and then the physical or your neurological stuff as well. I just think
And I think the thing that we talk about as well is, being in nature. And nature doesn't need to be like, I live in Sydney, right? So I'm not surrounded by national parks, but it can just be a walk by the ocean. It can just be a walk to the park. And I think we always remind people of the power of nature. And I think that's, the Central Australia really brings that home, in terms of if we just sit near a tree. Like there's so much power in nature that we forget to connect with that, even if it's for 5 or 10 minutes. It can really shift how we feel, how our body's feeling. And so I work from home. I'll quite often be like, I just have to go for a walk. I just get out of the house, and I come back, and you're totally reset.
Yeah.
Everything has reset, and you just went for some movement and a bit of nature, and it's like, wow, I just feel $1,000,000.
Yeah, grounding's very, like, I find that helps whenever you stand in grass
So
or in
important.
sand. Like it just de-electrifies your body that's just wound up to the hilt.
Yeah. And these are all the things that we're not taught any of this, Pete.
I know.
It's like we're taught all the things that I'm like, we are taught all the things to make us more stressed.
Algebra.
And we're not taught, yes, exactly. It makes me
made me
stressed. Just the
stressed.
word makes me stressed. And then we're not taught the things that actually will enhance our life.
Tax. We should be taught tax.
These words. Yeah. And it's like, and just all of these skills to how to feel better and how to live the life we want, we need to go and seek, because we're never going to be taught them. We're not taught them at school. We're taught the opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
We're literally taught the opposite.
If someone was listening and they're just, they're maybe stuck in a rut, they don't know, they're stuck in a job they don't like, they think that's it for them. They're maybe not as healthy as they could be, or where do you start? Those people, it's overwhelming because there is so much out there. If you were to share like maybe a few insights of what they could try or what they could do, where would you take them?
I think, I am a believer in talk therapy too, Pete. Like I actually think that, once we say things out loud,
yeah, a problem shared
because
is problem halved.
It is just, and a lot of it is just, we just hold everything in. So I think one step is to find someone to talk to about how we're feeling.
Yeah.
Because I think that unlocks the next door, which is, oh, okay, right, now I've actually acknowledged what's going on in my body.
And probably cried
there's
with
no
that
right
too.
or wrong. And there's no right or wrong. We feel the way we feel, and we're allowed to express that, which we're also not taught to do generally.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing for me is always like talking about how you're feeling and starting to unpack what's actually going on.
Yeah.
And then once we can start to really look at, what is going on, it's like, then we can start to go, well, what is true? What is not true? What is the thing that's a lot of what we say is just a story in our head of what we believe.
100%.
Most of the time it's not actually true. It's just our perception of it. So it's like, well, what could be another way to look at it? What is another, and helping people understand that they can choose differently. We put ourselves in this, there's nothing I can do, and then the whole world feels heavy.
Yeah.
So it's starting to learn that, okay, well, this is how I'm feeling, but look, what are some other options? And starting to explore those, I think is the first pathway to moving forward, because we're stuck because we're scared.
Yeah. And finding that trusted person to speak to
finding
is
somebody, a trusted
important.
person is really important. And if you need to talk to 3 different therapists, then you talk to 3 different therapists. You don't just go, well, I went to one and that was terrible.
Oh yeah,
it's like
people
there
do
will
that.
be someone, right? They do that, and it's like, no, try somebody else. That wasn't your person.
Yeah, it's like kissing a frog. You have to kiss a few frogs to start with until you find one that fits.
And I think, and I think for men especially, as much as I'm a huge advocate for, obviously, for women, but for men, it's like you're taught that if you do this, 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 you'll be happy. And we're seeing men coming into our programs that are like, I did all that. I've done all the things. And now what? Like, is this actually my life? Like, is this it?
Yeah.
And it's being able to say that out loud, to go like,
we've been
no, I'm not.
Folks.
We've kind of like, we've followed the system, and the system sucks.
Yeah.
And so being able to go, and speak to other people and be like, well, do you feel the same? It's like, oh my God, there's more people like us that did all the things. And then when this is not the life that I want, what am I doing?
Yeah. And understanding we're not special. We're, like, everyone goes through this. This is the thing, but people get locked in that this is happening to me and only me. I can't believe this. No one's able to help me because no one else has experienced this. Everyone goes through this at some stage of their life.
Everyone goes through it. And I think it's important to talk about. And that's why generally when people say, how was your exit from any time? I love saying to people, it was really, really hard.
Yeah.
Because everyone's like, that's not the answer most people give. They're like, oh, it was amazing. And then I went on holiday, and then and it was like, no, it was really challenging. And so these are the conversations that we need to have, because people need to understand that, actually everybody is struggling with something.
Yeah.
Because we're human. We're always going to be evolving and growing and learning and falling over 100%. And feeling sad about something. And so this is part of it.
Yeah. It's the illusion of lack of choice. That's what I say. It's just an illusion. It's not true. There's always choice.
It's the lack of agency that really holds us in total fear of doing anything.
Yeah.
And then we're just stuck, and then that's where the wheels really fall off.
Yeah, we're the writer. I guess from a couple of episodes, Jim and Fraser, we're the narrator of our life. We're not the story. We're the narrator. We write the story.
Yeah, we write it. So if we don't like what we're writing, we can write something else.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant. Great advice. So what's on in the near future? The trip coming up in May. Anything else on the horizon?
What is coming up? I turned 50 this year, which I'm actually so excited about.
I can't believe you're 50.
I know. I can't believe I'm 50 either. So we're going on safari. I'm taking the kids. My 2 little kids haven't been yet. My oldest has been with me a number of times. So we're going in 5 weeks. So I'm so excited. Yeah. So I'm just taking them to South Africa for a little bit. So that's fun. And then I'm going away with a few girlfriends so it's kind of like a year of 50. It feels like it's kind of just, of course,
you want to milk it.
Yeah. I'm not just going to have one day. And then Andrew and I have got another trip to Central Australia end of July. And then I've got the Hunger Project Zambia trip. So I've got a lot of travel, which I love. Like, it's one of my, So it's a great year.
Great year. Yeah, I would love to talk more about the brave spaces. I would like to see if you participate and get involved in some way. It's something that's been lacking in my life, giving back. I've done a lot of volunteer and raising money and stuff 10 years ago, but I've sort of lost track of that, doing the do in my business. But I need to bring it back in, because it's that fulfillment piece. You need to tick that box.
And I think just, for me, it's been some of my closest friends I found through the community at the Hunger Project. Like, I just, so they're just such an incredible community of people. One of my best girlfriends is on the board with me as well. So I think, it's finding those people. That's the other thing is, finding the tribe of people that really understand who we are, really align with our values. And I think that gives us so much energy. And so I'm a huge advocate for seeking that out in, as we grow and as we evolve. Sometimes our friendships grow and evolve, which is like really finding the people that really have our back and really align with what we want to do. And I think that's super important.
Yeah, definitely important. Brilliant. Well, that's been awesome to chat to and get to know you properly, rather than liking and
finally
commenting on your posts and stuff.
I know, a good chat. It's so funny.
So it's been great, Jacinta. Thanks a million for coming on, and I'm sure we'll have more face-to-face conversations in the future.
We will. I'm sure we will. Actual proper conversations.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks a million.
Pete. Thanks for
Jacinta.
having me.
Speak to you soon.
See you.